My name is Monk Rowe, and we are filming at Hamilton College for the Jazz Archive. I'm very pleased to have two interesting personalities with me today, Adam Nussbaum and Dan Wall, and who just described himself as a keyboard wizard. Is that what I heard correctly?
That would be an adequate description of him for sure.
There were other much better words than that, but I won't repeat them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at some of the information that was sent to me about you fellows, and I think next time you do your resumes, you could almost write down, here's the people I haven't played with, and you'd actually have a shorter list. It's amazing to me how many musicians that you guys have worked with. How does that come about?
I think what happens is, you know, you get to New York, you have friends that you meet on the scene, they have maybe gigs and associations with people that are established. Your name gets out there, people hear about you, friends recommend you, people hear you, and it kind of works that way.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to fulfill the requirements of jobs is one way to get another job. I mean, a buddy of mine says the best way to get a gig is to have a gig, because people hear you and then they can always find your number.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of elements come into play. You know, luck is, I think, when skill and opportunity meet.
All right, that's a good description.
I think that's something I've been very fortunate to have. And I feel very blessed to have had the opportunities to play with so many great musicians, because it's a constant learning process for me.
Mm-hmm. Did it pretty much happen the same for you, Dan?
Yeah, I think what Adam said is very true, that you know, you meet people, you play with them, they like your playing or they don't like your playing, but if they like your playing, then they tell a friend of theirs about this person. Mm-hmm. And, you know, because they know that this person they're speaking with would enjoy a certain thing that you do, a certain interaction you have with people, and you connect with them, and from them you connect with somebody else, and it's, you know, hopefully you get a flow going out of it. Yeah. And another thing that's probably important too, to work with a lot of people is to have develop kind of a broad understanding of music, you know, roots, so that you can look at someone who's a specialist and they only do one thing, but if you look at the big picture of things, I think that, you know, if you can be a diverse player, then your chances are much better for getting out there and working with a lot of different people, because everybody's a little different.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys come out of a music education background? Maybe you can address that first.
No, not so much with me. I was fortunate, for one thing, that I grew up in a family of professional piano players. So going back to my grandfather, my uncle, who's a very good pianist, my mom, who's still doing gigs, my two cousins, it's kind of ridiculous. You know, one's a record producer and a phenomenal reader, a well-educated person as opposed to me. So I was at Berkeley kind of doing just some specialized piano studies, as opposed to really being involved in going after a degree and participating in ensembles. I was actually doing a lot of gigs around Boston, and just, you know, at the school to kind of get what I felt that I needed to get. So I didn't come out of the educational. Now I teach in colleges, which is kind of strange, because you know, I didn't go through that system. I did most of my learning from listening, from playing with people, and by having people in the family who I could actually sit down and listen to this great sound coming out of the piano with these great chord voicings, you know, and ask my uncle, what are you doing? And then I would sit down, I want to do that, I want to make this instrument sound this way too. So that was more of my education.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I'd say pretty much the same thing. I didn't really come from a musical household. I came from a very arts-oriented household. My father was an artist, and my mother was involved with acting and graphics. And I was the sole musician, and I had a lot of different experience when I was younger. I mean, I studied the piano, I studied the bass, I studied the saxophone, but I just always wanted to play drums. So I kind of taught myself how to play drums after being inspired by an older cousin. Mm-hmm. And then I was always working little rock bands, youth symphony, marching band, things like that, and got hip to jazz when I was about 14 or 15. And pretty much did it on my own. I did go to the Davis Center for Performing Arts, which is a division of City College of New York, for 5 semesters. because basically my parents said, look, while you go to school, we'll pay your rent. And we want you to go to school because, of course, we want you to be prepared. And I never finished school because I was in New York and I was having the opportunity to work with a lot of different people, doing a lot of little gigs for very little money, but for amazingly great wealth of experience. And I never finished school, and I just was out on the road. And being in New York City, I had the opportunity to go to jam sessions, meet a lot of older musicians, and have the opportunity to really have a hands-on experience. So school was to fill in more of the theoretical aspects, you know, as far as learning about music, theory, harmony, stuff like that, which unfortunately I don't know enough of. But being in New York City gave me the opportunity, hands-on, to really learn about playing. So I'd say most of my education really comes from, the playing aspect comes from being out there on the street, more than through the academia.
I recently read a statement said by the fellow that you happen to be playing with tonight, that he actually, in retrospect, feels more fortunate that there wasn't all this jazz education available when he was learning. Do you have any feeling on that statement?
Well, I understand what this fellow meant, in that, and I see it happening myself through my own teaching, that you know, it's very easy for a young musician who's in the educational system, in the process, to get so absorbed, you know, become so absorbed with theoretical knowledge and the black and white on paper of this or that, that they miss the real bottom line of the whole thing, which is the ear and creating music, you know, hearing something to play. You know what I mean? It's almost like a block that can happen with some of them, not always. But maybe some of those people who are almost overloaded by theoretical information, maybe some of those people could be further along in their playing if they had approached it in a less academic way.
When
More hands-on, more hands-on.
Yeah, it's a big part
I
of it.
mean, you know, the best way to learn about this music is by doing it, and learning, for me, has been a constant evolution where only so much can come from books and come from things that you see. So much has to be done on the bandstand. You know, the process of learning, sitting next to musicians who are older and wiser, and basically getting humbled by people on the bandstand, where you basically get your ass kicked by people that play better than you, and you learn through doing. And unfortunately, unfortunately, there's less opportunities for that to occur because the big bands don't exist so much. Jazz is not the popular music of our time, where in the older days it was more popular. You always had the opportunity, hands-on, through the whole mentoring reality, where you'd be with older musicians who were more knowledgeable, and you'd learn by being next to them. And, you know, it's like, how did you learn how to walk? You didn't read it out of a book. You know, you saw somebody do it, and you tried to do it, you fell down, you got up, you did it again. And you learn through doing. And consequently, because there are not these opportunities for young musicians, as far as this mentoring opportunity, the educational system is taking up some of that slack, which is very good. But we can't lose sight of the whole reality of trying to find a voice, trying to find your own thing, your own sound. It's not like, how well can I be a Xerox of somebody else, but how can I take all the elements that are out there, learn as much as I can, you know, through, you know, imitation is part of the learning process, but then how can I find out how I can be the best that I can be? I mean, in the old days, it used to be you'd listen to somebody, you could tell who they were right away. It's like they sang their own song. Now a lot of musicians, it's like they're singing somebody else's song. And what's their song? You know what I mean?
Do you think it ever gets to the point where, does it get harder to have your own voice? Because there's so many more people that have come before you.
I think that as time goes on, we have to realize that nobody can be me better than me. And I have to tap into all my different influences, and I am my own person. And, you know, the way I look at things and the way that I am establishes and helps to shape what I'm about. I have a multitude of influences. I mean, who said that great line? It's like to steal from one person is plagiarism, to steal from many is research. And that's kind of what I've done. I mean, I'm a product of my time. I didn't grow up playing bebop. I grew up listening to classical music and playing rock and roll.
Yeah,
you know, so that's all part of my roots. That's part of my Wonder Bread years. So I can't deny the fact that I was affected by Jimi Hendrix, that I love Motown, that I used to listen to, you know, Bartok and, you know, opera when I was a child. That's all part of me. So, you know, then I did a whole study of learning about jazz, my own pursuit, because I loved it. And I'm really somebody who's interested in the history of it, that all these things kind of affect me. I mean, certain people, I love their sound. I don't dig their feel. Certain people, I like their swing, but I don't really get much from their, you know, I've taken different things from different people, and not just drummers or musicians.
Yeah.
You know, other influences of people in the arts and things like that have affected me. You know, visual things that I see, you know, being up here in the rolling hills, you know, influences how I think about things. Watching the clouds through in the sky, an ice skater. All those things kind of affect my aesthetic viewpoint, which affects me, you know?
Who are some of the musicians you might have stolen from early on?
Everybody, only the best.
Yeah.
No, I've probably stolen from some of the worst, too.
Or you figure out who you don't want to steal from along the way, too.
That's basically, I think, probably what happens, really. That doesn't interest me, I won't steal from him.
Right.
Now, this over here, yeah, let me grab some of that.
Right.
Well, you know, I grew up listening to, when I really became interested in music, because, you know, I was telling you about being from the family of pianists, I think that really actually turned me off in the beginning because I hated piano lessons. You know, I didn't because everybody did that. So, but they were smart. After about a year, they said, listen, if you don't like that, you don't have to do that. That's the end of that. So then when I went back to it, it was because I got interested in rock and roll. I heard Motown music, I heard rock, I heard the Stones, I heard, you know, all these people, and I was dabbling with the piano because of my uncle hearing this great sound, but what I was really interested in was the guitar because of that music. So I started listening to guitar players, you know, of course, all the bands of that time, and, you know, the guitar player with James Brown and the whole schmear of kind of those two kinds of music. I even had a little period of time where I listened to a lot of country music, and basically because I loved the guitar playing. You know, I loved their sound, I loved their percussive attack and the edge they played with. I got into a little country thing for a while, but then I kind of gravitated back to the jazz world, and I was hearing Wes Montgomery. That's one of the first, I think Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell were two of the first people who really hit me. And around the same time I was paying attention to some piano players because of a record that was in the house. And it was a record that was a combination, it was a kind of like a variety disc with Tatum, a couple of tracks by Tatum, a couple of tracks by Lenny Tristano, a couple of tracks Mary Lou Williams. You know, that was pretty amazing to hear all of this, and that really kind of grabbed my ear. So it was equally split between guitar players and starting to find out about some of the piano players from that period. Errol Garner was another one. But when I heard the guitar players, especially Wes, then I started hearing Jimmy Smith. And then the organ kind of grabbed my attention. And through him I heard Larry Young, and then that led a whole path of organ players and organ trios with all those great guitar players. But at the same time, I kind of kept my interest in rock and roll and Motown. I kept it all going for a while until it became, you know, until it became really like, yeah, I want to play jazz. This is really what I feel like, you know, this is the serious thing for me.
When did you first hit on the concept of looking at a chord symbol and building something from it?
Like extension, you mean?
Well, just the difference of actually having to play written out music.
Oh, immediately. I think because Well, I say immediately, not in the very beginning of listening to the Stones. When I heard that, I heard guitar parts from records, and I saw chord symbols. But when I heard Wes play, for instance, and I heard what was happening, I heard lines happening. There was something more happening over this harmonic bass. That's when I wanted to do something with a chord symbol. That's when I realized you could do something creative with this, with this foundation here, and I think that's when that whole process started.
Uh-huh.
And I'm still trying to find out what to do with all this,
When I listen to some of your recent recordings with this particular trio you're working with John, it really sounds like there's a lot of experimenting going on almost at every moment. Is that just inherent in the music, or do you guys feel like you're really pushing the envelope of what a organ-based trio can do?
I think that's kind of what we tried to do from the beginning of this band, really. That was the idea.
I think we all are very respectful of things that have gone on before, and love that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we all like to look. I think we all have some kind of vision, and I think we all have very similar common denominators as far as our musical roots and understanding. And it's like, okay, we understand this, and let's see how we can try to, test some new waters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was really a conscious effort. It was just kind of we're all of a similar mind, I think. We all have that similar kind of attitude about, okay, let's reach. And that's just, I guess, an unspoken thing that we like to do. We like to take chances, take risk. And, because we've kind of developed a trust to one another within this situation, these potentials are there for things to happen. And, sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But that's all part of the fun.
Uh-huh.
Taking chances. I mean, taking some risk,
Yeah.
We don't want to play it safe.
Right. And you're like the bass player, too.
Mm-hmm.
He's the everyman.
You got
He
the,
takes care of everything.
You, I mean, you have a, I can't think of the word, but you can send the things where it's going to go.
He dictates a lot of what can happen. I think within the situation, we all have a little more responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
which comes with the freedom, meaning more responsibility. I think very harmonically also. I'm understanding always, what's going on with the structures and how I can help to underline and give some kind of support to the harmonic structure of the compositions. Not just with him, but I'm helping to index those things because there's not necessarily a bass player and a separate piano player. And, if I help to do that, that helps to free him at times. And we all kind of like take turns extending into other zones.
Yeah, it makes it, being the bass player, and I really feel this when I go back to the piano, where I have a bass player. Being the bass player really, it definitely creates more responsibility, as Adam was saying. But actually, I've learned to enjoy that responsibility because it gives me an ability to shape things for myself a certain way, or to respond to something, say, Adam is doing, so that it really takes a change of gears. Because basically, you're talking about the keyboard player and the bass player, and one instantly going a certain direction. We've had a lot of fun with this over the years because we can just zoom, and it's a good responsibility. And like Adam said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But when it works, it's really I think it's an unusually good thing.
Yeah.
And going back to when we put the band together, we definitely didn't sit down and have a meeting and say, listen, let's do something different than the traditional organ trio.
Yeah.
I think that was just basically in the air when the three of us got together to play, and especially started playing gigs. That was basically automatically there, that this is going to be, to play these tunes, actually just even a great percentage of the material that we play, if you played it as a traditional organ trio, it wouldn't quite work. It kind of dictates that, you know, here's a piece of music.
Music tells
It
you what to
requires a
do.
different approach, yeah.
The music really tells you what to do, and then you have to figure out how to take care of it. You know, try to, you know, just support what it tells you to do.
Do you ever find that if you're, let's say, playing a standard or something, and you're playing it in 2 for a while, do you feel like you want to start going in 4, and you prod Dan, and do you ever resist?
He prods all the time.
He prods all the
He's
time.
I'm the instigator.
Jeez.
I think, well, I love it when he plays 2. Because when he plays, you know, once it goes to 4, that's kind of where it goes. You know, once it hits 4/4, that's where it goes to. You know, the longer we can mess with it, the more tensions it can create, and the more options that are viable for us. You know, when he plays 2 or he plays some kind of broken figures, similar to like just what an upright player would play, or you know, the bass. You know, it gives us the opportunity. If he's playing 2, I can play 2, I can play 4, I can, you know, zip in and around, whatever. We can play around with it. Sometimes he'll instigate going to the 4, whatever. You know, it's there's no set rule with that.
Sometimes it could be something that John plays.
Right.
If we're playing it back at John. Some line just feels like, yeah, there it is. No other place to go.
Right. Yeah.
We're committed now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think also playing, for me, it makes it a little easier playing because I use the lower keyboard for bass as opposed to pedals, that it makes it easier to, at least for me, to create some of those shapes where it's not always just kind of like finger popping walking bass, because of things that are possible with a hand that the feet can't quite do or wouldn't naturally do. You know, so we have a lot of fun with that.
You have pretty good percentage of original material in the trio. Is it a challenge to get your own pieces played these days, other than doing it yourself?
Well, you know, the couple of organ records that I've done lately, I think have been almost all my tunes, but maybe a couple of standards. With this band, we've played some of Adam's tunes. We played a lot of my tunes, which has been really nice. That from the beginning of that, I think the first record was you know, very equal or whatever in the amount of writing. I mean, you know, John is basically has always looked for material that we would sound good playing. Doesn't matter who wrote it. If this works, if you know, this fine.
Very democratic band leader.
That's right.
That's good. Do you get pressure from the record people to include standards?
Not with this band.
Not with this band?
That's for sure.
Not with the label that we've been involved with.
With ECM?
No.
That's good.
But a good example, you know, that brings up a funny thing though about organ. You know, people with preconceived ideas about organ. That I have this record out that I think, from what I'm hearing, the track that's getting the most airplay is a standard off the record. Two of 10 cuts were standards, I think, and one of those standards, because I mean, it works, which is great. It has this, but you know, people like hearing standards from the organ and the whole thing. But this band has been very original. The last record we did actually was, I think John wrote maybe everything on the record. The thing with Lovano and Kenny Wheeler and Mark Feldman.
And
I think there was one track we did, a free track. Yeah.
I mean, many people, they look at an organ trio and they think the instrumentation will dictate the conception of the music. And, oh yeah, man, you guys play a lot of blues, or you play a lot of this or a lot of that. Well, no, we don't. You know, this is the instrumentation, but we have our own approach to how we want to play. And we've never really discussed the concept of what we do. We just do it. And we all just listen to each other, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a point that you can think back that was a good step up into the world of a professional musician, playing with some person or some band, and you felt like, all right, I finally got to a point where I've been hoping for?
Good question.
I know it's hard to think back.
Who can
of it
answer
all.
that?
You mean a point where you felt validated?
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way.
Well, I guess maybe when you have one of your first big gigs, or maybe your first tour, or something like that.
What was the first big gig for you?
Well, the first band that I really worked in, I played with, I did a tour with John Scofield in 1978. That was my first European tour, and that was a tour. And then I was working with Dave Liebman in '78, and that was a very, very nurturing experience for me. I was the young blood, and I was playing with Dave, who played with all my heroes, you know, Elvin Jones, Miles Davis, and that band also included a fantastic trumpet player from Japan, Terumasa Hino. John Scofield was in that band, and eventually it was Ron McClure on bass. So these were all more experienced people than me. And to have that opportunity to play with them was really good, and Dave is a great teacher. So for me to be in that situation night after night was very beneficial for me. And then I think having a chance to then work with, you know, Stan Getz, that validated me in another sense, because a lot of people, when they saw me with Dave, that band was a hard-hitting band. And you know, a lot of people didn't like what we were doing. Maybe we were stretching too much, but it was really, you know, take no prisoners kind of a situation. But then when you play with a master like Stan, who's acknowledged across the board for his artistry, that validated me in another way, because then people could see I just wasn't playing with these guys going crazy all the time. You know, we could play a nice bossa nova and things like that. And to play with somebody who played as great as he did was an amazingly great experience for me. You know, this guy had an amazing sound, beautiful lines, incredible time. You know, he didn't even know why he sounded as good as he did. He was that kind of natural musician. And that, I think, gave me another kind of a validation in other circles. But I just consider every experience that I have an opportunity to learn something else about this music. And, you know, I consider myself a work in progress. I don't know, I mean...
Yeah, I think a work in progress is true. I think when I started playing with really great world-class musicians who I admired, and it worked out between us, and I got encouragement from them.
Right.
You know, like, which is kind of what you're saying, you know, like Steve Grossman, you know, amazing tenor player, and I'm just thinking about people early on, and Joe Chambers, very respected drummer, composer, and when I was working with Jeremy Steig's band, this is like 20 years ago, and Eddie Gomez playing bass, and these people, and they would, you know, they would compliment me or encourage me or whatever, or pull me into another thing. That was definite. That was like saying, yeah, okay, I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep trying. And then probably having I think the first record that I did under my name and getting really good reviews. Sure, there were bad reviews. I'm blocking those out.
Yeah.
But you know, the first time seeing good things in print written, that now it doesn't mean anything because I know what I think about it. And you know, and if I don't like it, which I usually don't, then it doesn't matter what somebody's going to write. But at that time, that was a pat on the back. I was saying, oh, okay, I guess I'm okay.
I think the biggest thrill is when your mentors tell you that they dig what you're doing.
Right.
That's the greatest.
Yeah.
You know, like with the people you look up to, who have kind of encouraged you, either directly or just through their divine inspiration. You know, come up to you and go, yeah, man, you're playing your ass off, or you sound great, or yeah, baby. You know, that makes it all worth it.
I think something that made me feel, it's in a different way, it's really in a different type of music, but it was a real, you know, like a nice feeling is, I did some touring with Henry Mancini, where you know, he's in his own thing. What a legend, you know.
Yeah.
And to be on stage, I mean, for him to take me on the road, which he had never done before with a pianist, but to take me on the road, and then here I am with these, you know, with the orchestras, with full orchestra on stage, and
Wow.
you know, and hanging out with Henry, and we're laughing and we're having fun. That was another kind of, you know, not so much a jazz, a creative music experience, although there was room for that. You know, that was it made me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when people that you really dug hire you and you get to play with some of your heroes, that's the greatest feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to play with people that you'd listened to for years and have inspired you, and then be on the bandstand with them, that's like, wow, what a great feeling. And, you know, sometimes you can't believe it. You have to, like, pinch yourself. How'd this happen? And, well, I just got to take care of business, stay focused, you know. Where the bandstand is holy territory. We're all there together, you know, trying to find kumbaya, and everybody work together and find that common language. I mean, that's an incredibly great feeling. I mean, I still get it. You know, when you get to play with somebody you dig, and just try to find, like, let's find a common agreement. And, you know, that's what making music is with people. You try to find the common ground and work together to serve what the music is. So that's when you get to do it with your heroes, that's a really great feeling.
You've had the opportunity to work with vocalists much, and is it different?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of work in the 80s with Dakota Staton, who yeah, the Late Late Show. And you know, I had always loved her records, and that was a lot of fun for me to be out doing gigs with her. And she didn't drive, so a lot of times I would pick her up for the gig or take her back after the gig or something, you know. But musically, it was, you know, that was a great. And there was another singer, Maxine Sullivan, who I did a record actually also with Maxine that got a lot of nice attention, and that was a lot of fun. Sheila Jordan. Yeah. My wife is a singer, is a really good singer. We've enjoyed being able to work together all of these years, and to do, you know, to write together and do projects. But that's another, you know, that's a funny subject too, because a lot of musicians are so caught up in looking in one direction that you know, vocalists, they block this whole concept out. Well, I don't want to play with a vocalist, like it's a waste of time. But with the right person, man, it's another zone. You can create incredible things, but in a, you know.
You have to be very sensitive to the situation. I mean, you have to respect what the song is. I mean, they're trying to sing a lyric.
Yeah.
You know, you have to make sure you can always hear that lyric. You have to give them the right kind of support so they can get it out there. And, you know, it requires a certain sensitivity. I mean, working with Stan Getz was like working with a great singer. Because, I mean, he really, the way he could sing out a melody, I mean, he was somebody where he didn't even have to improvise on a song. He could just play a ballad and play the melody. You didn't even need to hear him blow on it. You know, he brought a complete life and beautiful expression to just a melody. And, you know, when you work with a singer, you have to be respectful for what they need. You need to support them, but you can't get in their way. You know, I enjoy it. If it's a good singer, I love it. I mean...
But then, see, that's always the thing that I use.
The good singer.
Is that, yeah, well, okay, what about a horn player? What, do you enjoy playing with a bad horn player? Right. Yeah, that's what I always try to tell people, to wake them up, like, like, listen to what you're saying.
Right.
It's like when I listen to somebody goes, well, do you like playing? You seem to play with a lot of guitar players. I said, or you seem to play with a lot of this. I said, well, it's not the instrument that I dig playing with. It's the person who's playing it.
Sure.
It's like I'm more concerned with what the person's saying than what the instrument is.
I see.
I mean, you know, what's the person? What's the personality? What's the voice? I mean, any great artist on any instrument, any great artist, even visual, has a vibe, has a voice. And that's what I listen for.
Yeah.
You know, what are you saying? What's the story? Not like, is it a guitar or is it a piano? It's like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
I mean, some singers are great. Some aren't. Some horn players are great. Some aren't. I mean, you know, that's a good thing you said, though, yeah.
I think it's a good point, too, from the accompaniment standpoint, that they have to not only bring good music, but a good personality to make things cohesive. Get that kumbaya you're talking about, right?
I know when I worked with somebody like Al Cohen or Buddy DeFranco or Charlie Rouse, you find a way. They play a certain way. They play great. They played great. Buddy is still real. All in their own ways. But you find a way of interacting with that, and if you enjoy the way that you're interacting with that, then you have fun working with this person. Doesn't matter if he's playing clarinet.
Yeah.
You find kumbaya.
Is there any kind of, I'll use the word inequality, in the marketing of the jazz musician these days according to their age?
Oh, sure. Definitely.
I'll take that as a yes.
That's a long topic to be discussed. I mean, unfortunately, the way things are going now in this world and with the whole marketing ploy, it's like new, exciting. These things are really being pushed through the marketing forces and things like that. And it's very unfortunate because, this art form is something where the longer you can stay at it, the better you're going to get at it. Mm-hmm. And it's very sad to see many artists who are at the peak of their game getting ignored for one reason or another, because they're not the new kid on the block, or they don't look a certain way, or things like that. And that's quite unfortunate. And there's a lot of guys that are I'd say in the middle zone, who have been kind of ignored, unfortunately. It's like if you're new and young and exciting, that's one thing. Or if you're old and like an old tiger, it's like young lions, old tigers. What about just the herd that's in there? What about just the cats that are in there in the middle? There's pretty across the board, there's been a lot of people that have not really been getting a fair shake, and I'm not really sure why that is. It seems maybe in the whole reality of marketing and the world today and just our society, there's not a lot of room for a lot of people to be able to get out there as far as being supported. Mm-hmm. It's like, I look at it, there's several getting a very big piece of the pie, and many others have to grovel for their small slice. Mm. Which is unfortunate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a little unfortunate for the young artists that get all of this attention
and
acclaim right away. Yeah, where are they going to go? And also think, in a lot of cases, how much further they could go if they were left in some peace.
Right.
To really look for their own voice,
right.
Like Adam was saying earlier. To keep pushing for it. Because all of a sudden, at this age where they're really still developing, they're in the middle of marketing strategy by a record label, and you need to do this, and your next thing needs to be this, and we know that you can play that way, but we need to market you this way, and all of a sudden, you're in the middle of a whole corporate concept, as opposed to really having some peace and maybe still being a little hungry for a while, and developing even more out of your playing.
Right. That's
finding yourself more.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, then all of a sudden you're elevated to this status, and you're just like almost a beginner in the
right.
field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That whole mentoring situation doesn't seem to be existing that much now. And I remember when I was always the young guy in the band. I was always the baby. And now I'm in certain situations where I'm the old man, but then I'm still in situations where I am the young guy. Mm-hmm. I play with James Moody. He's 76 now. He's playing better than ever. And you know what? I don't even think he has a record deal now. And he's one of the real icons of the music. Mm-hmm. He's one of the last of the survivors, and he's at the peak of his game, and he doesn't even have a deal now.
Right.
Because I think he was with a big company, and they were saying, well, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. It's like,
that's exactly, I remember him. Yeah,
man, come on, this is James Moody. Can't you at least let the guy make a record he wants to make? It's we could go off on this for a long
But
time.
yeah, that's it.
But your question's a very good one. Yeah, it's true what you're saying.
What about the racial scene these days? Is it, I mean, this music has brought a lot of people together where they weren't allowed in other parts of society. Is it healthy now for you guys anyway?
You know, I've never really thought about this stuff in regard to what I do. I just do what I do. I can only try to be the best that I can be. I'm going to be, sorry about that, I know I'm going to be involved in situations, and I can only try to play the best I can. I know I won't get hired by certain white musicians. I know I won't get hired by certain black musicians. But you know what? Then I know I get hired by certain white musicians, and I know I get hired by black musicians.
Okay.
And I've found that it's a strange reality, but being a white jazz drummer, there's not many of me. There's not many.
Many of me.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
And I mean, there's certain white guys that won't hire me because I'm white. There's certain white people within the business that won't hire me because I'm white. And, you know, I find that the best musicians that I know, black or white, they don't look at you. They listen to you. But I don't let this bother me because I can just go straight ahead and play. So, you know, that's BS for other people to worry about, not me. I just have to go ahead and play my ass off and do the best that I can do. But I understand the reality of it, and I don't let it faze me. You know, people like Art Pepper and all these guys that wrote these books, they were always dealing with that paranoia. You know, oh, will I be accepted, you know, in this game as this, you know, because I feel like an outsider? Man, I'm in here with what I'm doing. I don't worry about that. You know, he was always dealing with that. And that kind of paranoia, and then, you know, I can't worry about those kind of things. I can, you know, I have friends, black, white, green, yellow, you know, we're all the same here. We're all the same in this world. If people could start looking at how similar we all are, instead of how different we are, you know, we're all the same, man. We can all get together. Black men, white women, white men, black women, yellow people. You know, it makes no difference. We're all people. We can all get together. It's not like humans and dogs. You know what I mean? We're all people in this world, right? I mean, if they could all look at it that way, if you know, if we could look at things that way, there'd be no more problems happening in Europe. With the whole thing with Yugoslavia and Serbia and this and Croatia and all the Middle Eastern crap. You know, I just look at the common, what do we all have in common, not what do we all have in difference, you know? I don't know, what would you say about all that?
Oh, yeah, and you know, and well, there's nothing in there to argue with. I'm not going to argue with you anyway.
No, but I mean,
but,
I don't worry about this stuff, man.
Yeah, that's something that you can't, you know, it's like if someone is, it's kind of like going back to, we're talking about corporate marketing. If somebody is so hung up in this preconceived idea rather than just looking or listening, rather, at the way someone plays and says, yeah, I'd like to work with him. I'd like to have him in my band. Or I hear the way he plays and I don't want to have him in my band. That's what it should all be about. And if someone doesn't happen to think or hear that way, then I don't think I would want to work with them anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to be a part of that musical situation. So I never think about it. It all just seems to work out in a natural way.
I mean, when I first came to New York, I was playing with just a broad cross-section of everybody on a racial basis. And it wasn't about what you looked like. It was like if you could play, you had the desire, you had the love, and you were giving to the music. And people were listening with their ears, not with their eyes.
And now?
I think, you know, it's probably the same way.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure that, you know, I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I just don't worry about it. It's like if a guy wants to hire me, I'm there for the music. You know, I go in, I try to do the best I can for what the situation warrants. You know, hopefully when people hire me, they trust me to bring forth what I can do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm there for the good of the music. You know, and I try to get along with everybody, you know. There we go again, kumbaya, baby, that's what you want, you
Right.
know? That's what it's all supposed to be. You know, music is supposed to be a thing where we all get together, and all that other stuff has not, you know, is not supposed to interfere. You know, it may all affect the way people think about stuff and their viewpoints, but when you get on the bandstand, man, the music, it tells you what to do. That's the common denominator. And we're all supposed to work together for that. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right. Well said.
Yeah.
Let's suppose you got asked to do a career day at a local high school.
Mhm.
And would you be encouraging to some aspiring musicians to try to make a living in this day and age?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting comment, because I was walking down the hall of Oberlin where I teach, and I was listening to all of these people play this phenomenal, you know, like, I wish I could play the piano like this. You know, it's just ridiculous. And then you have a violinist over here, and I was thinking, what are they all going to do? Oh my gosh. But at the same time, when I'm sitting in a room working with the pianist that I have, I'm not going to give them that vibe, but who knows what they can do until they get out there and try. I'm going to try to get them better.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to sit there and play with them and work on their reaction time and work on their ears and try to play something back to them that they fall apart trying to play back to me, so that they'll get better, so that they'll go out there and see what they can do. Because that's really what, you know, I think that's a big problem sometimes with, say, families, where you have the family negative influence in saying, don't go into music, you'll never make a living. Come into the family business, be a doctor. How do you know you can't make a living? Don't tell them that. Tell them, you know, you check it out, but, you know, do it like 100%, and then see what you can do. Or suppose they want to be an actor or a painter or whatever, you know. And then later, then it's going to become pretty clear which way you're going to have to go. Either it's going to work or it's not. You're going to adjust to that.
Right. You said you came from an artistic family. Did you get any, can I assume you got encouragement to go into what you're doing? Yeah.
My parents both were very pragmatic in the regard to, my father was a fine artist. He never made his living as an artist. He made his living doing technical illustration. So he still utilized his craft, but not to the sense of expression that he was able to do. And my mother had been involved with acting, and then she got involved because of her aesthetic, I guess, viewpoint, got involved with graphic design and advertising. So both of them didn't really make their living at what their passion was. So they were both very concerned, because of what their reality had been, with me being properly prepared to have something to fall back on. So consequently they said, look, I mean, originally I went to school at Emerson College for 1 year to study liberal arts, but I was getting so into playing, I said, what am I doing? I might as well put my focus in more towards the music. You know, they just wanted me to be prepared for the tactics of this world we live in. But I think that I never finished school. I just started getting out there and playing. So, I mean, I know that I gave them a great amount of satisfaction, knowing that I have been somehow able to eke out a living playing music, you know. And it's not easy. I mean, I'm traveling all the time because I just can't stay home and do it.
Right.
It's kind of like a blessing and a curse. I mean, the blessing is being able to go out, play music with great people. Every night's an adventure. You never know what's going to happen. The curse is I have to be away from the family a lot, traveling a lot, got a lot of miles on me.
Yeah.
Can't stay home on a regular basis. But I don't think I could do anything else. It's kind of like I need it. And I don't think I made a conscious decision to become a musician. It just kind of happened. You know, I loved doing it. People call you, they get your number, You go to the gig, you get another gig. You know, it just seemed to happen that way. And, you know, if you're really trying to think intelligently and realistically, man, go out and get a job where you know you can make a steady check. You know, if a young person is debating in their mind, well, should I go for the security or should I go out and try it? Well, you know, if you're having to think about it, then maybe you're not supposed to be doing it. I mean, with me, I just kind of look at it as though this kind of happened. I guess it kind of picked me. And I had to go with it. So I did. And I mean, if you're young and you're not sure about it, and you have no responsibilities, and you can just go out there and give it a shot, give it a shot. You know? Try, see what's going to happen. You know, once you have the realities of marriage, mortgage, children, all that, you may not have that opportunity to give it a shot. You know, so...
well, I'm sure both you guys are putting a lot of weight towards retirement.
What am I going to retire to?
Retire to.
What am I going to retire to? That's the great thing. I mean, I look at James Moody, he's 76. I talked to Pat LaBarbera today. He's going to go out and play with Elvin again. You know, Elvin's 73. These guys are only getting better. What are they going to do? Go play golf? I mean, they're still getting better. I mean, that's the great thing about being a musician. It's like, you know, every day I look forward to playing because there's going to be something different than the day before. I mean, you know, I got no pension plan, you know, with my job. We're out there in the real world. We have to, you know, anything we do is IRAs or whatever kind of stuff. It's like, you know, I don't know what I would retire to.
I hate to think what you would retire to, really. I wouldn't want to be around.
I'm just hoping my mind and body can keep it together.
Yeah, but you know, that's the thing about music, like you're talking about Moody and everybody. If you look at what music can do for you in terms of years, and you see people that are like 72 years old, and they look good and they're happy, and they're happy because they're playing.
Yeah, and this is their life force.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
I mean, look at Milt Hinton. How long would Milt? What was he? 90 or something?
90, yeah.
I mean, then this guy, he just kept going, and he always had a smile on his face, and he brought a great vibe to everybody, and he just kept doing it. And I mean, he had it together for a long time. I mean, he was playing up till he was around 87, 88, right?
Right.
God bless him. I mean,
and you look at a lot of other people in other lines of work, and they have ulcers, and they're stressed out at like 60, and they're burned out, and they're miserable, and it's a big difference. You know, if you're the person that finds that they should be playing music, you know, to make you happy, you're not going to play it to get rich. Hopefully, you're going to make an okay living and all that stuff. But you know, if that's really in you, that this is what you do, they can keep you going for a lot of years.
I feel like I'm just starting to get the hang of it now. Yeah. I really do. I feel like in the past year or so, I'm starting to get a clearer idea. I mean, this is after doing it a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's a great feeling because it keeps me hungry, keeps me humble, and keeps me like vibrant.
Wow.
It's a constant challenge, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it can't be, what you're talking about can't be because of your technique, I wouldn't think.
What technique?
Well, okay.
Me too. You're talking to the wrong people here about that.
I mean, it's something else, right? It's making connections between players and, I mean, I don't know what, but maybe we can't describe it, but you're feeling it in the last year or so, you said.
I just feel like I'm getting a better idea about music and, you know, projecting that other thing which can't really be described or explained. You know, it's not a technical thing. It's not necessarily an intellectual thing. It's more the vibe that's being created, and maybe you want to call it a spiritual kind of feeling, but, you know, projecting a feeling, you know, and having people being able to feel something through the music. I mean, I realized that recently, this is a gift. If you can play music and get out there and play for people, you have a certain amount of gift. That, you know, maybe you just, God dropped it in your lap, or maybe you've spent a lot of time working at the craft to have this gift. And then when you get out, you're trying to make people feel something. Hopefully. You know, any great artist is going to do that to you in any field of music. And any kind of art idiom. You know, Picasso could do it, Rembrandt could do it, Ben Webster could do it with one note, John Coltrane could do it with 1,000 notes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And, you know, Jimi Hendrix could do it, Marvin Gaye could do it. You get a vibe, you get a feeling. Billie Holiday.
Humphrey Bogart.
You name it. Humphrey
There
Bogart,
you
Greta Garbo.
Yeah. That's,
You-
you know, that's so true. Like Humphrey did it with, like, you know, his look or
Yeah.
a look, and
Had the dark
someone else
thing.
does
Right.
it with a
Yeah.
note.
That's right. And, you know, to have that kind of thing where you make people get some kind of feeling, that's something. And, you know, as you grow up in this world, as you start to deal with life and the things that you have to, you know, deal with as far as realities of life, you know, wife, kids, family, being out here in the world, working with everybody, you know, all these things affect you. You know, everything that happens to you affects you. You know, people you love, people that come and go, people that die, whatever. All these things affect you. And then they all help to shape you. And, you know, when you play, this is all part of your life experience. And this is all part of what's out there on the line. And when you're playing, you know, you got to be thankful for that experience. I mean, you know, you got to get up there, play your ass off. You could be dead tomorrow. You know, you can't feel like you're jiving anybody. You know, you're on the line. It's for real. And when you're in a great band, it's a great feeling, because if everybody's got that kind of feeling going on, it's a great thing. You know, it's indescribable. I mean, you know, there are those moments in your life where you feel like the music is playing you. You're just like a vehicle for stuff that comes out when you're in that other space. And those are the things that keep you going.
And it's definitely not a technical thing. I mean, you have to have enough technique to convey, you know, to be able to manifest this, you know, this thing that's happening.
Right.
But technique is nothing against technique,
No.
but, you know, it has to be up to a certain level, but it's definitely not a technical thing.
I mean, you hear Train, I'm aware of the feeling. I'm not aware of the amazing chops that he had to do it. You know, it's like you hear a man really playing from his soul.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like any of the great players I hear, whatever technical brilliance they have, you never lose the blues. You know, the blues is always somehow there in any of the people that you dig, you know? I mean, you heard it all the time with Louis Armstrong. You hear it with Billie Holiday. You hear it with Train. You hear it with Sonny. You hear it with, you know, somebody that makes you feel something. And that's the thing that I mean, it's not even just jazz. It's all the other music too. You know, Jimi Hendrix with all the stuff he did pushing the envelope with the guitar. Man, underneath it, that was some serious blues going down. You know, when I hear, you know, Rubinstein playing Chopin nocturnes, you know, you getting it. You know what I mean? You feel it. And that's, you know, for me, that's all the stuff that's affected me. You know, it's like, how does it make you feel? It's not like, did you see that? Well, no, it's like, wow, you know.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Right?
And how'd you like? It's not like, how are you doing? It's like, how are you feeling? You know?
Well, I know you fellas have to get to a sound check.
Yeah, but we can probably go on all
We're not
day.
going to go. We'll just hang here.
We'll hang here.
Do you have any other pertinent questions you feel?
Well, let me
would be-
think about that for a moment. Do you have like a short list of people that you haven't played with yet that you'd just love to?
Yeah.
Or maybe even people that have passed on that you
Oh,
wish
no.
you
boy.
Well, there you go.
That's a big list.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I'd been able to see people like, you know, Bird, Bud Powell. I mean, you know, Coltrane. You know, because the energy and the feeling you get from the recorded medium is phenomenal. But that never approaches what it's like to be in the room. I mean, when you're in the room with the sound, that changes your life forever. I mean, the first time I heard Miles Davis, it was like, wow. Or when you know, the first time you know, like I remember the first time I sat next to Philly Joe Jones, and it was like, oh man. Or, you know, those things, you never forget that. And to being able to heard Bird or these cats, Bud, you know, my God,
Yeah,
it
being
must
in
have been, would have been an amazing experience. And to get to play with them would have been an astounding treat, you know, God.
What you just said about being in the room, that's the thing right there.
Yeah, that.
Not a record, not a CD, but being in the room. Like I would love to have been sitting somewhere in a room where Tatum was playing.
Yeah, wow.
That would have been unbelievable, you know? It would have been just unbelievable because it's kind of like going back to my uncle playing the piano. There could have been nothing better than that, than being in the room.
Right
Hearing
next
this
to him.
right here, you know, there's no separation.
And
There's no
feeling that-
second generation
yeah.
anything.
Yeah, right.
You're right there, nothing like it, which is probably an important thing for, you know, for the educational system to realize is that to really develop great young players, they need to be in the room.
They need to be in the room with
this
the
happening.
sound.
That's right.
I mean, I can't stress it enough to be in the room and hear somebody that really plays great. To be next to them, to be in the room with the sound and experience it firsthand.
Because that's reality.
Yeah, that's reality. It's like, I make the analogy a lot of times when I'm doing a clinic. I'll say, well, do you want to just read the sex manual and look at the videos, or do you want to be right in there and enjoy that?
That gets their attention, I bet.
That gets their attention, but you know,
It's a good concept.
you got to be there. I mean, there's nothing like being on the bandstand playing with it.
Yeah.
But to be in the room, to be a drummer, and to watch and see how this motion makes the sound, to feel what's going on, you know, to see how the horn player plays, to watch their whole physical being and to feel the sound. I mean, I was deceived for many years when I used to listen to records, because whenever I used to hear Stan Getz on a record, he had that soft, gentle tone. And then I would hear Joe Henderson on a record, and he had this really firm core on his sound. So I'm thinking Joe's got this real big sound, and Stan has got this gentle sound. Then I got on the bandstand with Joe, and it was a small. He's not loud at all, but he had a very firm core to his sound. Meantime, Stan Getz, it sounded like he was so quiet. This was like a foghorn. I mean, the ability of his sound to project was like getting hit with a hammer wrapped in velvet.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he was so loud. You know, it was deceptive. You'd never get that from a record. You never get it.
That's
And
right.
like when I first heard Thelonious Monk live, I could not believe how much sound he got out of the piano without banging. It was like there was Mack trucks behind each finger putting out the sound. Astounding.
Yeah, I remember that too, the first time I heard Monk at the Vanguard.
Yeah.
And because that's a good example of drawing a sound out of the instrument. It's not, you know, it's not done with force and attack and this and that. He, you know, is pulling the sound out. Or
Yeah.
hearing Elvin live the first time.
Yeah, I mean, you can't believe it. You just can't believe being in that room. I mean, and whenever there's an opportunity, I think, for, you know, young musicians to go out and see the old guys first. Because they're not going to be around forever.
Right.
And I mean, you will never forget it.
Plus, you're not seeing any of the, when you listen to a record, you're not seeing any of the body language and the eye contact and the way the music is shaped from the start of the song till the end.
Yeah.
That's sure. If you're in the room, that's why I said it's reality. You're in the room. This is it. This is the whole picture. The complete
Right.
picture is delivered to you.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you feel that amazing feeling from records, the records we all know and love that have helped to shape our whole reality as far as the way we perceive music and play, if you get that vibe from a record, imagine what it must have been like live. I mean, so I can't, it's really important for young musicians to not just look at the books and look at the videos, but whenever there's a chance, go out and see the cats play. I mean, you know, there's nothing like it. I mean, I remember seeing Dizzy when I was 8 years old, and it was amazing. And he was amazing because he was just such a silly person. And a great life force coming from this guy. I don't even remember the music. I just remember this guy being so much fun and clowning around with me. Because he was, and
Wow.
the effect, the positive effect that had on me as a kid made me then think about the music and like, wow, this was something that gave me a great feeling. And then later on, I was listening, and I realized this guy was also a phenomenal musician, but I just remembered him as the human being and just his vibe. And, you know, years later, I was fortunate, and I got to hang with Dizzy a bunch, and I got to know him a little bit, and then I finally did get to play with him. And I said, man, you know, when I was 8 years old, I saw you play, and it was at this gig at Leonard Bernstein's house for the NAACP, a benefit in like the 60s. And Wes Montgomery was there, Morgana King, Milt was there, Billy Taylor, and Dizzy was there. And there was no bandstand. They were just set up like on a platform. So I'm this little curly, red-haired kid, you know, right by the drums, always watching. And Dizzy was clowning with me and all this stuff. And I just remembered what a good time I had, and how he just made me feel so good, and it was a great thing. And I guess that was one of those experiences that was kind of defining, although I would never have known it at the time.
Yeah.
Years later, I said, man, you know, and he was like, okay. It's a great thing.
I can see that watching that.
Oh, man.
His face, you know, it must have been like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, you remember these things as time goes on, and, you know, the people that you admire, and then you get to meet them as people, and some of them are fantastic human beings, and, you know, they are kind of like the way the music is, and other people, it's another world the way they are. And that's all part of it, too, you know. Or maybe their real self comes through the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like trying to juggle schedules? When I look at kind of what you're doing some teaching, both of you seem to, and playing with all these different people. Does it, do your commitments collide sometimes?
Well, I'm not on the road like Adam.
Uh-huh.
I
He's
kind of
like,
cut loose.
we're talking about the road warrior here.
Yeah.
I kind of cut loose my teaching for right now, because I didn't feel that I could fulfill what students should be getting.
Yeah.
I mean, when a kid is in school and they want to have a lesson every week, I wasn't able to fulfill that. And, you know, I used to tell them up front, look, I can't see you every week. I'm going to be out for a few weeks, then we can get together for 2-3 hours at a shot. I was realizing that was not fair to them. Some of them said, oh, no, I still want to do it. And, you know, if somebody still really wants to get together with me, they can call me and I can try to do it. But I haven't, right now, been committed to any of the schools that I was in the past. I'm still an adjunct as such.
Right.
But it gets difficult. And then it gets difficult with, you know, commitments, because sometimes you'll say to somebody, yeah, I'll do this. Then somebody else you want to play with calls you, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, but I am committed at that time. Because I like to be a man of my word.
Yeah. You start backing out too often.
Yeah, I don't like to do that. I mean, I had the situation, you know, sending subs in on situations, and eventually they just say, okay, well, you're not available, we're going to use them. Risk you take.
Yeah.
So right now I'm really not actively teaching. I do clinics and things like that when I'm out on the road, or I'll do some private students and things like that.
Right.
And I enjoy doing them, especially when you have people who are have a certain degree of ability already.
Yeah.
You know, because then, you know, you can kind of help them fine-tune things, and helps me fine-tune things too.
But it does get tricky, because this past year I've really gotten into a lot of college stuff it's all very enjoyable and very good, but it's tricky actually doing two colleges for one thing, and then playing, because the playing will conflict with the colleges will conflict with the playing. Sometimes both colleges will conflict with each other, and you know, and then I always feel bad about. It's really all about, you know, what I try to do is just try to keep some kind of balance between it all.
That's the secret.
To try to be fair, you know, to, like, these students here, okay, these people are really not at the level of these people here, but you still have to be fair.
Right.
You know, is this a gig? This gig is going to conflict with that. Is this gig really that important? You know, maybe not. Okay, I can't do the gig because this educational event, is I have to give priority to, or vice versa. I have to go out of town and play something.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to cancel all this, and then you have to reschedule and find ways of making it fair for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's really, it gets into a lot. There's a way to do it. That can border on some stress
Yes.
I guess.
at times.
Yeah.
And then you
Try to
take
keep a
niacin.
balance. Try to
just-
keep a balance.
And take
That's-
niacin.
Yeah.
And think,
Niacin. Stress.
I see.
Trying to find the balance, that's not easy,
Yeah.
but it's necessary.
Trying to be fair, and a lot of people don't think that way. They really don't care if they're fair or not. They just basically go for it.
Right.
Right.
But if you're dealing with students and people who you're trying to, you're trying to help them. You're trying to be fair to them and to the people that are, that want you to be there to help them.
Well, listen, fellas, this has been great for me.
Yes, and very
pleasure.
good questions.
I ask,
Yeah, very good.
So what we'll do,
Thought-provoking.
we'll look down the road to do it again, and when you're got a little more experience under your belt,
We'll
a
work
few
on
more
it.
airports.
That's it. No problem. No problem. Thanks.
Thank you
Pleasure.
Okay, man.
very much.